Hey there, what's going on, everybody? My name is Carlos Manzanero. I am the head of client education here at Texas Urban Elements. And in this video is a part of a series, but in and of itself will teach you a ton. So if you are about to pick a drainage contractor based on the lowest quote, stop. I know it's easy for me to say this as someone who's offering you a solution that isn't going to be the cheapest, but I want you to consider the following, right? Stop. And not because cheap is always wrong, because in Houston clay, cheap drainage does not just underperform, it fails completely. It fails fast. This video tells you exactly why, so you know what to look for before you sign anything or before you go with a contractor that has the most attractive pricing. So there's two things about cheap quotes that they almost always ignore. The first is the clay itself. Houston clay has almost zero permeability. It holds water like a sealed bowl. It is incredibly dense, right? And a French drain that is buried inside of improperly bedded clays fills up and stops working within the first few storms. The second is roof volume. Your roof dumps thousands of gallons per storm into a handful of exit points that are considered your downspouts, right? Without catch basins placed at the right spots, you end up overwhelming the yard. The water ends up being way too much for it to even consider reaching a drain. Cheap quotes end up skipping both of these things. They just kind of walk around, take a look for 10 or 20 minutes and say, yep, this is, it's going to cost you $3,000 or $1,500 or whatever it is. And fingers crossed that you as the homeowner say, perfect, we'll take it, right? But the problem with a cheap drainage job or even a cheap quote is that you will often look at it and see the same kind of fix, which is your black corrugated flex pipe. And contractors love it and builders love it because it is fast and cheap to install, but it oftentimes crushes under the wet Houston clay. It's just not strong enough to handle the weight of it. And sediment collects inside of the internal ridges, meaning that dirt and debris and rocks and all other stuff ends up just staying inside of it. And also it's really like flimsy, right? So tree roots can end up shredding straight through it. And what you think is underneath the ground helping you out is actually causing more of a problem. So what we do is we use rigid smooth wall PVC every time, no exceptions. It holds a precise 1% gravitational slope, which makes sure that the water moves fast with no friction. It is built to use gravity to outlast your home, right? We're building these things to last as long as they possibly can last. And the pipe choice alone separates a system that lasts a few years from one that lasts as long as you stay in the home. So drainage is not just digging a trench and dropping in a pipe. It is physics. It is formulas. Gravity and slope determine how deep the system has to go and how far the pipe has to run. Water must travel continuously downhill to a confirmed discharge point, meaning that it cannot have any backward flow. You have to know where it's going. It's got to be like a highway, right? You're not going to get on the highway going the wrong way. Hopefully not. But it's the idea that you're creating a highway for the water to leave your property as humanly possible. And you're saying, hey man, no back traffic, right? Every property handles neighbor runoff and roof volume differently. And a quote that ignores these variables is not a quote, it is a guess. And guesses end up causing you bigger problems down the line. So the thing that I personally believe that cheap quotes always leave out, there's these three things, right? We talked about it earlier, but clay excavation, right? Digging precisely sloped trenches through dense Houston clay requires heavy equipment, real labor, and hauling tons of displaced soil off of your property, depending on what side of town you're on. Some sides of town don't allow for you to really remove or add soil, so you got to reintegrate. And that's why it's so important to have a personalized plan, because you have to know exactly what you're allowed to do in your property. But that cost does not just disappear. It just does not show up in the quote. It's there. So next you have having strategic catch points. A catch basin placed 2 feet from the right spot is useless. Surface water follows the path of least resistance. And if the collection point is not exactly at that lowest point, if the collection point is not exactly at the low spot, the system misses the water entirely. And again, you have something that looks good, but is just not doing the job. And then finally, you're looking for safe discharge. You want a system that doesn't discharge the water back onto the property. As obvious as that sounds, I've seen it where there's a system that just drops the water back onto the property just somewhere else. That's not drainage. That's a liability and a Band-Aid solution. So when you see what you see after a job is sod and a clean yard. What makes the job actually work is everything underneath and everything that was avoided on the way down. Tree roots, gas lines, irrigation pipes, buried utilities, all of those things. Getting a trench through a tight side yard without hitting any of those requires slow surgical work along with knowing exactly where they are. And that's why we make the call to 811. Rushing that is where damage happens. And after the pipe goes in, proper soil backfill, precise top grading, and seamless sod restoration are not optional finishes. Like, you need to fill it back up. You need to add the soil, you need to add the top grading, and you need to make sure that the sod is restored, or whatever you have there is restored. They are part of what makes the system perform correctly. You cannot guess at this. A yard that looks like a construction zone after the job was done was not finished. It was abandoned before it was done. All right, now we're touching on Houston. So here's what real drainage costs in Houston look like based on system complexity. These are just rough estimates. So not how fast someone wants to close a sale. This is based on real statistic data from sources like Home Guide and other aggregate platforms. So small systems run anywhere between $1,800 to $3,500, basic routing, minimal excavation, short discharge run. Mid-sized systems can run $3,500 to $8,500. And I know, again, a lot of this stuff depends on variables, and that's why it's important to do your research before you get into this, because no two properties are exactly the same. You're looking at the multiple catch points, the deep clay trenching, and then a full solid PVC line throughout the entirety of the system. So complex systems start at $8,500 and go up from there. Whole yard grading, root barriers, and long discharge distances play a role. So if you got a quote below these ranges, something was left out. Find out before you say yes. Consider if it's actually a solution to your problem, and ask them questions based off of what you just learned in this video. So how do we do it? Well, this is how we do it. 4 steps, no shortcuts, like everything else. Step 1, we do a drainage water flow assessment. We evaluate slope, soil density, roof runoff volume to find the true source. Step 2, we do system engineering. We design the exact catch points, pipe capacity, and discharge route based on your yard's physics, not some random template. We go out and take a look at your yard and tailor it directly to you. Step 3 is where we go into precision excavation. We trench through dense clay while navigating all of the utility lines, irrigation lines, and tree roots without damaging. Sometimes this even requires hand digging, but precision is what we're looking for. And step 4, we go into permanent installation. So this is rigid PVC, perfecting the slope, and complete sod and landscape restoration where we leave, so it looks like we were never there, but you know that the solution is already underground and it's going to last as long as you need it to. So before you keep comparing quotes, get the real data on your yard, because without a diagnosis, all you're comparing is price. And in Houston Clay, the cheapest system is usually the most expensive mistake. Schedule a drainage assessment by reaching out to us at texasurbanelements.com, or you can call us at 832-304-7007. Thanks.